meet to have discussions with John Ellsbury about the 6-county boundary joint ordinance proposal. And with that, John, I'll turn it over to you to share with us.
Well, thank you so much for granting me a spot on your agenda. I'm pretty passionate about this issue. I have no stake in it, however. I mean, I own property, but I don't own any along this boundary at all. And the reason I'm passionate about it is because I'm a land surveyor and I've had to deal with this boundary line. And of all of the professional challenges I've had, this is one of the greatest ones. And the reason is because it is indeterminate. And there's not a good way to put it on the ground. You guys were, I think you were all present during that North Idaho Commissioners Conference, and probably touch on a lot of that again, but currently the description of your western boundary is a line due north of the North Fork of the Clearwater River. It does not have a single monument on it. And it is in direct conflict with every legal description that adjoins it. And the majority of that boundary just goes through the mountains and woods. Doesn't affect much. But where it crosses the Silver Valley, you're going to have some development there someday. You got a freeway intersection goes right through it right now. And if I were in your shoes, I would get ahead of that curve instead of behind it. Development will come, and knowing where the county boundary is precisely will save a lot of legal expenditures. Not that the lawyers don't need it. My brother's an attorney. He could always use another. But they make $200 an hour to $500 an hour, and surveyors only make about 100. You're a lot better to deal with us.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's wrong with the boundary now? It's indeterminate. Where's the mouth of the North Fork? There's about 4 good places that you could say this is it, that are documented from past surveying history, 150 years of surveying history. But every single one of those places, the best you can hope for is it being in about 1,790 feet of difference between what your county assessor today. And why would we go there? So the bottom line is the existing boundary is unmanageable, untenable. The only logical solution is to abandon it and come up with something that's better. And what I did was, there was a very strong argument to use the 16th line. You know what I mean when I say that? Yeah. Okay, that's what most of your county assessors are using now. Excuse me. The problem with just using that is that in the over 100 miles of boundary line, we would have maybe 10 monuments on it. 10 monuments, a monument every 100 miles or 10 miles, that doesn't quite cut it. Mm-hmm. And so I looked for something better. And believe me, I pounded my head against this for a long time with my own county. And we finally come up with the idea of just zigzagging it back and forth from the most monuments that we could find. And so my initial idea was just put it on the section line. Doing that would make your county bigger. But every other county on the west side would have to give up thousands of acres of tax-paying lands, and that wouldn't cut it politically. And so the zigzag back and forth idea came up. So we zigzag a quarter of a mile back and forth across the approximate 16th line location. So some of this boundary falls on the midsection line, north and south, and some of it falls on the section line and where people live, where there are private properties. We held it on the 16th line where they think it is. In all of the acreage determinations that I've made, I've used that 16th line as the base to figure pluses and minuses. You know, acreage gains or losses. Mm-hmm. And that's the most politically feasible place. Now, if you guys approve this and it goes through, I've got an estimate of what you're gonna actually gain. I got those numbers, so I should use them. And as it worked out, Shoshone County is one of the gainers. You would gain 128 acres by my estimate of tax-paying acres, and you'd also gain 392 of federal lands and state lands. Some of the federal lands pay taxes or payments in lieu of taxes. Mm-hmm. State land doesn't get a dime. So your net gain is 520 acres, so that's a little less than a section. But that's really immaterial. I think if the only purpose that it serves is if your electorate needs an explanation, well, you can say, hey, we're gaining just a little bit, a smudge. I know that you had a little bit of dispute with what's the county in Montana on the other side of the
Oh, Sanders or
no, Rabbit, whatever it is. Yeah. The Lookout ski resort and the freeway interchange have changed the drainage, and what the state line is the drainage boundary, the top of the ridge line. And so making their parking lot and moving dirt to make a decent interchange has changed that. And I think Shoshone County might have taken it in the shorts a little bit for what that's worth. It made a surveying magazine. I don't know if you guys have ever even heard of that issue. So the other thing for consideration, I guess, is whose land are we talking about transferring? And the majority landowner is the Forest Service. 41% of the boundary abuts them, but they don't pay anything or very little. And Potlatch Corporation is the next biggest player. There's two different Potlatch entities, and their combined ownership is 23% of this boundary. They are the only private entity that has embraced this idea and says, yes, we are in favor of it. However, I couldn't get them to put it in writing, but they've made it to a lot of public hearings further south. I couldn't talk Brant into coming to this one. He had something else going on, but they do endorse it, and they're going to have some change, and their taxes might go up or down. And the fellows that I'm dealing with, they don't want to put their name behind something that ends up costing Potlatch an extra $100 a year or whatever it's going to be. It's going to be very little change because all of their lands are as rural as you get. And the difference between one county and the other is not going to be that great. there probably will be a difference. I have no idea what it is. State of Idaho Department of Lands is another big player, 11%. I couldn't get them to get off to give me an endorsement one way or the other. And I worked for them for 35 years.
Where's the loyalty?
I couldn't believe it. But there again, you know, the whole, everybody want to pass out the ladder. You know, I don't want to make this decision for the department. And I just couldn't get an endorsement out of them. But the bottom line is they don't care because it isn't going to change a thing. It will make their foresters' lives just a little simpler to be able to accurately and precisely locate the county boundary, to know when they're crossing it. They have roads that, you know, pay surface replacement, and there's where they get onto a county right away. They need to know where that is. And every one of their foresters that I bounced this idea says, please do this. But I couldn't get the fellas that were making the big bucks to get off the fence. 8% of these lands are owned by private landowners like you and I. And near as I can see, I've made a very large effort to avoid transferring a single one of those private landowners from one county to the other. There are no residences that transfer. We had one. It was a Shoshone County resident right on the edge of the St. Joe River. She didn't want to move. I said, you know, you go to St. Mary's every week. Wouldn't you want to deal with it? She didn't want to go. And so we made a little divot in the map out of the straight line that we had to keep her where she was. So no harm done, no foul. The BLM is and Hancock Forest Management both have 4%. And then the rest of them are 1%, and then the 1% or less. It's very small timber companies, and there's a handful of them. I won't bother to mention their names. So the bottom line is it's going to make very little splash in your annual revenue picture. There's going to be no cost to you because this land doesn't have to be surveyed. We're going to set it on existing monuments and existing corners that might not be monument. So the public land survey is what will determine your boundary, which is going to make your assessors so happy. Believe me. Now that first year might be a bit cumbersome, and I've discussed it at length with the Latah County assessor. And it's one of those, what's first, the chicken or the egg? Think about it for a moment. We changed the boundaries. You guys agree with me. We all sign, we take it to the legislature. Okay, a done deal. Next step is we have to adjust property rules or the tax rolls. Or do we have to adjust the deeds first? So at length, we discussed it down in Latah County, and we decided, no, we're going to do the tax rolls first, because this would be a response to a state law, and that's entirely appropriate to sit down and figure out what the transfer is and adjust the tax rolls accordingly. I think at some point in time, I have got a spreadsheet that identifies every single parcel in every single county that is affected. Now, I have not sat down and figured out what all of the legal descriptions are, but they're pretty, they're all going to be very similar. And that's what I do for a living. So it's not going to take me very long to generate it. And I am already a county employee for Latah County. And I see myself providing, even if I had to make a trip up here to sit down with your assessor, because every assessor's got a piece of software that she does her everything on, or she or he. And it's best to do it in a spreadsheet format so that you get the math right. Okay, land titles. We're not going to convey anybody's land. Every property owner that is affected, there's going to be zero conveyance. Transfer some parcels or portions thereof from one county to another, but it does not affect the underlying title. Now, I know that you guys sort of new on the job, and one of the things that the county courthouse is the repository, the archive of property records. And every county has got a title company that sort of, title companies are a little bit more adept at finding the title history of a specific parcel than your employees are, because that's their business. And so I've discussed it with our local title company in Latah County, and although they see it as a bit of a burden, it's going to be like a one-day burden. The bulk of the lands that will transfer are and have always been owned by timber companies. Maybe if you go back to statehood, you probably all are aware of how Potlatch Corporation acquired title to so many millions of acres of Idaho. They paid their employees to file a homestead entry, built a cabin, planted a garden for whatever the minimum time was, and then Potlatch had a contract with them that once they proved it, they sold it to Potlatch at a predetermined price. And that's how it was all acquired in the first place. So all of those archive histories are very doable. I mean, it's all on computers now, or should be. Of any place that it might not be, this is the place. But I don't think that your title company, believe me, has already got it on a computer, even if you don't. And figuring out that transfer of the title records archive, that might be a burden, but it's what they do for a living. Title companies can handle this. And I don't think that it's a reason for you to hesitate to do this. But that in honesty is the biggest burden that we're going to create. And it's going to be not an issue for any private landowner. Corporate landowners will be the ones that are going to shoulder the burden, what little that we create. Your state and federal landowners that are the majority of the lands, I doubt that they have any title history in any counties at all, because they are and continue to be the original title holder. Maybe not for every piece of state lands, but pretty close. They don't pay taxes, and it's not going to be a big deal. I've discussed this with a lot of surveyors, probably a dozen. The legal description that I've created has been reviewed about a dozen times. I wish that I could say that it's squeaky clean, but I'm pretty certain that it is. We haven't found a bump in it for a long time. I emphasize again, no residences transfer. Therefore, we need no election of affected electors because we're not moving any. that would be a heck of a burden if we did.
Can you tell me the status on what the other counties are on this? I saw that Coeur d'Alene had tabled it.
Well, they tabled it kind of because I asked them to. The Bonner and Benoit both signed it, but I didn't give them a package. I gave them a bunch of pieces. And when they signed it and recorded it, they kind of put the wrong pieces underneath it. And so, and then to make matters worse, their prosecutor actually, I shouldn't say make matters worse. Thankfully, she actually read things and she's gave it a very, very close going over. And she said, you know, it's an ordinance. You can't say the word resolve in an ordinance. You got to ordain in an ordinance, which changed a little wording. And so we revised and sent it to you guys. Got my emails, I'm sure, and we've got it to what we feel is a final wording now. And so Benoit and Bonner and Latau have signed, and I expect Coeur d'Alene or Kootenai to sign shortly. If we have a holdout, it's Clearwater County. But I think that with Potlatch coming to the meeting with me and saying, yes, we are not going to sue you for monkeying with our title. This is going to help us, not hurt us. And all of these minor timber companies, many of them are insurance companies, basically, Hancock, Boston, etc. They acquire, I don't know how they acquired what they have, but they all are landholding companies looking for a better, sweeter deal eventually. And so, and Potlatch has converted many of their lands to higher and better uses, which means vacation homes. And I'm sure that somewhere along this boundary, they will divide more, which from your perspective is a good thing, not a bad thing. More private landowners means more tax revenues, which, you know, all 6 of these counties are more or less cash starved because they can only do what they can afford to do. So this is an investment in the future, especially the future of Shoshone County. I don't know what the, you know, if more mineral wealth is going to be discovered somewhere, this is the place. I'm not sure what the next bonanza will be, but if there's going to be one, and if it's ever found, this is the place. And knowing which county is it in is a great investment in that future. And so I don't see you guys having to make an expenditure at all. Part of this ordinance requests the state to make a grant. $10,000 isn't much, but I think that it will pay for the paperwork. Any other questions? A friend of mine urged me to reach out to the governor, and I intend to do that pretty close to next. I haven't yet. I don't know Governor Little, but he does. So I should be able to at least get past his gatekeeper and make him aware that this is going to come down the pike. I really don't foresee a legislative issue. I can't imagine why both parties wouldn't endorse it. We will make sure that we have a Republican sponsors. If we go with another Democratic one, I don't think it'd ever see the light of day. But I don't foresee the next steps being difficult. I've already drafted what, I tried this once before you guys were in your seats. So I drafted a proposed bill for just moving the boundary for a little bit of Shoshone County and Latah and Clearwater. So I've gone through the steps already once, had a really good legislative sponsor, and she walked me through the steps. I know that none of you are probably very familiar with land surveying, but the legal description, your county's is the oldest one of the whole, of all 6. And 3 counties, Bonner, Kootenai, and Benoit, but their legal boundary description is thence to the west boundary of Shoshone County. So their legal description isn't going to change much other than thence to the west boundary of Shoshone County as of December or January 9th, 2024, when this becomes law. So the only ones that have to really be changed much are Shoshone, Latah, and Clearwater. They actually call for the North Fork of the Clearwater River due north thereof. So anyway, I've thought about it a lot, and bottom line to you is that I've already gone through the paper drill once, and it won't take long once I'm actually doing it for real.
Have you spoken with our assessor at all in this county? Just to get his input on this?
He was in the meetings that I presented it
Wow.
to your predecessors.
Okay.
One of my colleagues has had quite a bit of conversations with him, but I have not.
Okay.
Jim Minzer is a fellow surveyor, and I thought he was going to be here today, but he had something else going on.
Okay.
Questions from the board? Comments or questions?
No, and I remember you presenting it in the meetings too.
Yes.
So, but I'd like to see Jerry's input.
Do we know why Kootenai hasn't made a decision yet?
Well, simply because, number one, I sent them an email, please don't act on it until I give you the final wording. And they've only had that for a week since last Thursday.
Oh, okay.
I don't believe they're going to have an issue. I mean, when I sat down with them, it was nothing but, yes, it's a great idea. They had one of their commissioners absent. And if you'd like to see my presentation to them, it's on YouTube.
As will today's be, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, you're gonna be famous.
Yeah.
Wow. Even a video?
Video.
Yeah.
Holy
Yeah.
mackerel, I would have practiced more. I would have maybe even shaved. Wow.
Any thoughts from you, Commissioner?
No, I think it's a good idea. I can see, we are gaining, I know that, but I think it's a good idea to straighten things up and.
I wouldn't start padding the expenditure budget though on.
Oh, I know we're not gaining, but expense wise, or income wise, but I mean, I think it looks pretty good.
It's going to be such a minuscule amount that it won't even show.
Mm-hmm.
That amount of acreage gain. When you look at the numbers from before and after, and make an inflationary whatever, and it's not even going to make it to a 100th of a percent of change of anything.
And you gave us a draft ordinance.
I did. I've emailed it to you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you decide to endorse this, it need to have the maps attached to the bottom in there. When you print it out, it's all a PDF and the maps will come with it. So it should be about 25 or 26 pages. Print it off.
Okay. I'd like to just hear from our assessor.
I had a nice long chat with your prosecutor.
Did you? Okay. I was going to say I would like to talk to the prosecutor and the assessor a little bit just to make sure I'm thinking the way they're thinking. But so I don't know. Would you guys be interested in tabling this for a little bit of research and then we reconsider in a week or so?
Yes, that sounds,
Does that,
Yeah, okay.
that work with you? And then we'll get you an answer in the next week or so here and,
Okay.
it makes sense.
I think it's as close to a no-brainer as you're ever gonna have come across your desk.
We could
I-
use more of those
I
lately.
think that your assessor, although they're gonna be impacted, we've made a provision for that, and there should be a state grant that covers it and more. And I don't see any corporate owners writing you a nasty gram saying, "What in the hell were you guys drinking?" If
Well-
anything, it makes all of their titles stronger, and if they choose to go to higher and better uses, something other than timber management or mining, I think it's just gonna be better.
Yeah, something that would have had to have been done. Okay. Well, I would motion that we table for a week while we have a chance to gather a little bit more information and bring it back to the agenda.
second,
Okay, any discussion?
Nope.
Okay, all in favor?
I,
Aye.
aye.
All right, so give us a few days to do some talking and then we'll reach back out to you. I
Good.
appreciate hearing this the second time. It made more sense the second time. It's starting to understand. It's a complex thing to get your head around.
I'm sure it is. It's probably something that never in your wildest dream would have imagined that somebody was gonna walk through here saying, "Here's what you need to do and why."
mhm. Well, thank you for your hard work.
Maybe you could redo that boundary around Montana for us and straighten out that thing at Lookout. Maybe get us back some more.
Is
Well,
that Mineral County that we're,
Mineral County.
the next county over in Montana?
I can't remember. I thought it was Ravelli.
Ravelli.
Oh.
Yeah, I think
maybe.
that's further over.
Okay.
Hmm.
So anyway, if you want to revisit that, it is not a huge investment of anything to do. And you ought to have the conversation with that county that, right now, we can fight over things, but if you choose to change it, you can change it to anything that works better for both of you.
Hmm.
Now, just the fact that it's a state boundary might require an act of Congress.
I would imagine the move
Mhm.
state boundary would.
Yeah.
But I'm not positive. But that's a very real possibility, is that
I know with that Oregon movement that they're talking about that Congress would have to approve if part of Oregon joined Idaho and moved state boundaries. So we're talking about congressional approval.
But if both your counties were in agreement
Mhm.
and both of your states were in agreement that this is an improvement and will put to bed something, all of our lawmakers are looking for stuff that they can say, "Hey, yeah, that we did this.
Yeah.
This is a plus and made the world better,
Mhm.
a little better." And so if you needed some on the ground work done for some reason, I don't know that there's a surveyor with a shingle out in Shoshone County right now, but I would reach out to Jim Minzer or Chris Ronaldo over in St. Mary's, and but I would encourage you to, if you do want to address this, have a plan, have an idea what would be better than what you have now, because you can put it anywhere. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
When I dreamed up this proposed boundary, it's starting at the north end. My first focus was, okay, suppose somebody wants to put this on the ground. These X's on this map are monuments that are recoverable these particular ones were set in the 1930s by either the BLM or the General Land Office. I can't remember who was in charge then. And this line is the top of the ridge, top of the mountain ridge. So it's why I share it with you is that to produce the corner point is doable. Any surveyor could do it in a day. At the other end of your boundary, I don't think is monumented, but it could in a day. And there might be a good reason for your, oh, there's something that I forgot to mention. And we'll get to it, right?
Mhm.
But a real investment, an expenditure investment would be to consider putting in those corner points and having a state plane coordinate for them. Sooner or later, you might not have a GIS department now, do you?
Hmm.
You do or you don't?
We do have
It-
the GIS
Yeah,
system,
Okay,
the assessor's office.
so there is a good reason to know where the corners of your counties are. And having a state plane coordinate on it would make everything very much more mappable. And one of the reasons that I would urge you to vote in favor of this, I've been contacted by Technology Services, the Department of Idaho Technological Services. I know it sounded like something out of, I don't know what, the State Tax Commission probably. But at any rate, this Bureau of State Government is charged with producing a county boundary layer for all of the GIS systems so that they can mate it with your cell phone. So that when you dial, hit the 911 on your cell phone, wherever your cell phone is, that call is going to go to the county that you're in.
okay.
And currently, you got a whole western boundary of your county that you don't have a clue, give or take a half a mile, where it is. This will fix that. And having hard corners at each end would make it a little bit better. But many of these corner points that I've shown on these maps, many of them have been recently visited by surveyors doing what they do. And one of the things that we do now is assign a state plane coordinate to that, which makes it very identifiable precisely for your GIS technician.
Mm.
And therefore, lots of the mapping needs that you're going to have into the future will be just so much easier to do if the GIS guy knows where the edge is.
Mm-hmm.
And the place that you're going to know the most is where it's the most important, where it crosses the Silver Valley. Because that's, you got a freeway interchange right there at Cataldo. Believe me, everything that the ITD has done, there's a state plane coordinate on everything that they've tied to. So that's already pretty solid.
Mhm.
They just don't know where your boundary is.
Well, I sure appreciate all your work in this and your expertise.
Well, when I got hurt and became a county surveyor, you got a lot of time on your hands twiddling your thumbs and nobody knocks on the door. And I have had to address this issue 3 times in my career. And I'm still kind of looking over my shoulder because I didn't do it the same way twice.
Solves that. Well, thank you, and we will get back to you.
Okay.
Okay. This meeting is adjourned and